Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Today's guest is an independent business consultant who helps companies develop dynamic leaders who drive positive results and personal satisfaction. His key focus areas are leadership development, keynote speaking, business strategy, sales generation, and corporate training. Furthermore, he provides several areas of expertise, such as improving profitability, cash flow management, increasing sales performance, marketing, advertising, strategic planning, human resource optimization, and organizational design. He's also a guest lecturer and adjunct faculty member at a number of colleges and universities in New York State. And he's here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about some of the problems, some of the obstacles and misconceptions surrounding the individuals and organizations he loves to help the most. So with that said, let's hear what he has to share. Founder of Speaking of Strategy, Larry Mietus. Welcome to the show, Larry. Are you there?
Yes, Stuart, I'm here. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
You are welcome, Larry, and I just can't wait to get started. I've had a quick chat with you before. You sound like a really exciting guy, and based on your bio, it looks like you're going to have a lot of great information to share with our listeners. So with that said, let's jump feet first in and just set the tone for the rest of the show by asking you, who is it that you help, Larry? Who's your perfect prospect?
Well, Stuart, my client base that I work with really runs the gamut, all the way from mom and pop organizations to local, regional, national, and even international clients that I have. Which, selfishly speaking, that's good for me because I'm a guy who gets easily bored if I did too much of the same thing with the same type of client. But I think the common threads that run through all those organizations are the fact that there's some level of frustration. There's some goal, desired goal that these organizations have that they can't seem to obtain. Or perhaps they've lost their edge, they've lost some market share, sales are down, profitability is down, and they just can't get their arms around why that is. One of the thought processes I like to walk people through when they work with me is, I'll say to any organization as an example, let's talk about what you have to stop doing today. Not tomorrow, today, stop. On the other side, let's talk about what you have to start doing. And what do you have to get back to doing? And you know what? Every company has an answer for that question.
I bet they do. And when you're out there, Larry, and speaking with individuals and these organizations, what are 2 to 3 common obstacles that you see that are preventing them from achieving their desired outcomes?
Oh, that's a great question, Stuart. And again, there's a lot of commonality across all levels of these organizations. It doesn't matter if they're privately held, publicly traded, white collar, blue collar. It almost doesn't matter what sector they're in. The same things tend to haunt them. So, some of those items might be a lack of focus. They're just all over the map every day, and they don't really have a direction. And sometimes that goes all the way back to not having a mission, not having a vision, not having 3 to 5 identifiable strategic key performance indicators. In a lot of these organizations, it's what's the flavor, not of the month, but of the day, and the next day they're on to something else. So lack of focus, I would say lack of accountability. Even some organizations with great focus just struggle with making people and holding people accountable. And I find usually 2 things happen there. When we say accountability in those cultures, people get nervous and they envision, here's what's going to happen to me when things go wrong. And I always talk to my clients and say, we have to paint a picture first of, here's how great it's going to look when we're wildly successful. And yes, if things aren't on track, we are going to have a conversation, but that's not the main focus. So lack of accountability, quite honestly, Stuart, sometimes it's just the wrong people in the wrong positions. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they just aren't the best fit for a position in their organization. And then I think the other thing that I see sometimes is just people with too much on their plate. We ask them to focus, but then we give them 50 things to do.
Okay, Larry, but the point of somebody being in the wrong position within an organization, I mean, I know I've been in that position myself several times, and there's nothing more frustrating when you are given responsibilities that you just don't have the skill set for, or you don't have the passion for. With that said, do you have any advice, any insights for anybody listening out there right now who are within the organizational structure and they are in that wrong position and being made accountable for projects that it's just not their thing, it's just not their bag? Do you have any insights for that, Larry?
Yes, I do, Stuart. And I really think the organization has to own that line of communication. And one of my suggestions to circumvent that would be, people usually don't walk up to their supervisor and say, I don't like this assignment, or I'm really burned out on my job. They're just afraid to have those conversations. They're not comfortable. I think it's incumbent on every organization, once a year minimum, ideally twice a year, take a cultural survey of your people, because there shouldn't be any secrets. And ask people simple questions like, a year from now, do you still want to be with us? What do you see yourself doing? Maybe 3 years from now, do you still want to be with us? What do you see yourself doing? And then what, as an organization, are we asking Stuart to not do that he has a skill set for? So shame on us. What hasn't he told us he'd like to do, or his talents are, that he'd like to bring and contribute to the organization? It's that type of dialogue. And quite honestly, usually when I say that, people go, well, what if Stuart said he didn't want to be here next year? Well, that's great. It's better to find out now and help him to the next best place in his career, and we backfill his position or bring in someone with Stuart's help, versus he walks in at noon and tells me it's 5 o'clock, he's never coming back. So I kind of liken running a business sometimes, Stuart, to managing a sports franchise. You have to look at your roster, see what people can do, see if they should be in a different position, and then look at areas where you might be weak or vulnerable and shore those areas up. So this has to be a running dialogue between ownership, leadership, management, and the workforce.
You help individuals and organizations to enhance their reputation and increase market share, profitability, and their company value, right?
Correct.
So while you're out there doing that, Larry, what are 2 to 3 popular myths, or even better said, misconceptions that they may have about achieving that desired outcome of being able to enhance their reputation and increase their market share, profitability, and company value?
Well, some of those myths would be things like the organization takes on a mindset that says, well, this just can't be done. It's never been done before by us. It's never been done in our industry. So let's not even talk about it. And sometimes those grandiose ideas, I say to people, park them a couple parking lots away, but don't let them out of your eyesight, because, there was a day and time when we said men wouldn't walk on the moon and people wouldn't talk on phones that weren't connected to walls with cords. So there's always the possibility. Another myth, I think, is that companies think they have to be extremely innovative and creative, and sometimes they throw up their hands and say, we're not innovative or creative, so we'll just keep our nose to the grindstone and keep doing what we've always done. Another myth, though, on the other side of that coin, is sometimes organizations say, here's an idea that we have, and it's going to be pretty easy to execute. And at the end of the day, if it were that easy, the old cliche, everyone would be doing it. And then sometimes the myth is, well, what they want to do, they just automatically assume it's going to be too costly. So again, when I look at that costliness factor, I say, well, think about running a sports franchise with a salary cap or a bonus structure. Figure out the math, the finances, figure out what dollars and people you can free up to get these things done. Make sure there's a good balance and not too much on their plates. Then attempt what you want to accomplish, but put some parameters on it, put a timeline on it, put some pulse checkpoints along the way in there, because you get to a point sometimes where you have to bail on a project because it's not feasible, but you don't want to bail too soon, and you also don't want to bail too late.
And assuming that everybody out there knows who they are and what their company does, that's correct, right?
That's correct. And sometimes people lose focus, as we said a few minutes ago, inside the company. What are they really producing? What problem are they really solving? What is their space in the marketplace, and is it really the space they want to be in? It's funny. If you walk into different organizations and ask simple questions like that, you get some pretty diverse answers, and that's usually a warning sign that maybe everyone's not sure what direction that organization is moving in or what they want to accomplish. If you don't know those two answers, then you go home every day going, I'm not sure I contributed because I don't really know what they want me to do.
And do you come across the general thought that multitasking is beneficial?
On most days, I'm going to say no. And depending on who you listen to and what you read, the pendulum is sort of swinging now in the direction that says there is no such thing as multitasking. There are people doing many things at once. The question becomes, how good are they doing those things, and what are they actually accomplishing, and how much time is it taking them to accomplish those tasks? Again, I'm a fan of give people less to do with extreme focus. Get your best people in those focus areas and move forward that way. Multitasking, I think, is overrated. It became very cool and in vogue for a number of years, but I think the reality is it's really hard to live that lifestyle.
At home, when I ever attempt to multitask, I implode. It's just not something that
most people do.
Anyway, moving on, Larry. What are one or two of the pitfalls that I should be aware of while I'm out there trying to reach my goal of enhancing my reputation and to increase my market share and some of the other outcomes that we already spoke about?
I think you have to assess, number one, always in my mind, is the human capital. Do we have the right people to accomplish what we want? And I've always said for years with my clients and inside classrooms, Stuart, that the greatest resource any organization has is its human resource. You can have the coolest technology, the slickest advertising campaign, a brand new building, but none of those things can help accomplish the goal like the people can. So it's all about the people and their passion. And we can't teach passion, quite honestly. Employers try to inject that into people who come to the party with passion or they don't. We can teach almost everything else under the sun. So I think it's human capital. It's, do we really understand how much money might be involved, or finances or financial backing, to achieve what we want to accomplish? And that could be simple things like hiring people or capitalization through capital expenditure for equipment, square footage in a building, opening up another market in another country to do business. It could be all those things. And then, quite honestly, time. How much time can we invest in this project?
Any other pitfalls?
Well, it sounds very cliche, and I almost hate to say it, but there's always that fear of failure. And I found that I do an awful lot of work with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ventures and companies. And what I love about entrepreneurs is they don't seem to have a fear of failure, or if they do, it's not greatly developed. Now, the trade-off there is many entrepreneurs lack the discipline of management and follow through and accountability and timelines and all those other things we've already talked about today. But they don't let fear get in their way. And quite honestly, I meet a lot of people who are they're afraid to make the decision. I hear a lot of people say things to me like, we thought about that once. We tried that for a week, and they give up. And it's sort of that back of the brain saying to them, what if you fail? Who cares? You learn your lessons and you move on.
You just touched on the point of fear of failure. Are there any other common fears that you come across when you're out there in the field besides the fear of failure?
Excellent question, Stuart. And I think some other fears would be just fear of financial distress. What if I put my last dime into this? What if I second mortgage my house? What if, and the bottom falls out? And that's a very, very legitimate fear that has to be planned for. They always say to somebody who's thinking about launching their own business, if you don't have 6 to 8 months of money in the bank to cover your living expenses, it's not time to leave your day job and start your own company or your own business. So the fear of that financial distress, the fear of failure that we already talked about. Sometimes it's the fear of what could happen to their brand or their image or their reputation in the marketplace or the market space. This flops. Are people going to stop buying our other products type of thing? Those are usually the most common fears. And sometimes it's legalities. What if someone steals my idea? and gets it to market before I do. And I actually find that a lot of organizations just aren't versed well enough in the legalities and need to surround themselves with some good legal advice. So when you're in meetings and conversations with people, you're having those people fill out non-disclosure agreements and non-compete agreements and things like that. Because, I mean, honestly, in the thousands of years that companies have been around in business, ideas get stolen every day, and that's a legitimate fear.
So far, Larry, we've spoken about some of the obstacles where you mentioned lack of focus and accountability and people being in the wrong positions. You also touched on the topic of some of the misconceptions out there where people felt that change could be a bad thing and that they need to be so creative and innovative. You then moved on to speak about some of the pitfalls, some of the things they need to be aware of. Like you just mentioned that people are the best resource, and you also went on to talk about some of their fear of financial stress, their fear of failure, their fear of their brand not doing as well as they hoped it would do out in the field. And then you just recently touched on the legalities and maybe their products, their ideas being stolen. Now, you shared some fantastic information so far, Larry, and I just want to move on to the next question. So we already understand that the individuals and organizations that you work with would want to enhance their reputation and increase market share, profitability, and their company value. However, what would be their emotional reason for solving that particular problem? As well as, this is like two questions, what would be their logical reason for solving that problem?
Stuart, an emotional reason would be success. Most human beings are programmed to like the feeling of success. Some people brag about it a little bit more than others. Some people are more humble. But to take a concept, map it out, plan for it financially, build the right team or adjust the team that already exists inside the organization, see the goal through, and see that have an impact on your business, I think that's an emotional driver that, quite honestly, a lot of people aren't used to where they work. They're not geared to think that way or encouraged to think that way. I think the logical driving force would be a number of the things we've already spoken about today. It's not logical. It's illogical to wake up as a business person or a company every day and say, hey, let's go in today and lose money. The logic says, let's be profitable. Let's potentially increase our market share or at least maintain it. Let's build and enhance the reputation of our brand. That's logical thinking, so those steps can get them there.
And how would things change then, Larry, if they were able to actually solve that problem then? How would things change for them?
Well, I think it's culture, and most cultural change in organizations, Stuart, takes anywhere from 24 to 36 months to really gain traction and become the real pulse of an organization. So in order for those changes to take place, leadership, ownership, management, and everyone involved has to constantly be talking about who are we, what do we do, how do we do it, why are we doing it, and why are we doing it this way? So it becomes more natural. It's like riding a bike. When we start to learn to ride a bike, you have to think really hard, you fall off a lot, and you scrape your elbows and your knees. When you get your business firing on all cylinders, it becomes more natural. A climate is built that says this is who we are, this is how we roll, this is what we expect, and that's normal for us. And so that would be the upside. And then that becomes the culture. It's kind of hard to go backwards to where they were, unless they have like a mass exodus of people, and then they bring in some folks that aren't used to that culture. But the strongest cultures out there in business just have an accepted way of operating and thinking. And quite honestly, when they're hiring people, if people don't fit the culture, they don't try to force them into the culture. The indoctrination is too difficult, so they move on to the next candidate.
We haven't heard much about your backstory. What inspired you to do what you do now, and what inspired you to help the people who you help today in your business? What kind of solutions do you have out there, Larry? Do they have a name? How did you start? Give us a little bit of feedback on that, please.
Sure. Well, I woke up one day and I said, I've been working for other people for 35 years, and I think I'm disciplined enough to work for myself. And my wife, who's my best friend, soulmate, and the love of my life, said, you know what? You've always done what you said you were going to do. So go out and do this. And, about 9 years ago, I became an independent business consultant. I really genuinely enjoy meeting people. I really enjoy people. I enjoy being helpful to them. And, what's kind of unique about what I do as a consultant, Stuart, is, and my kids always look at me like I'm crazy when I say this, no one has to take my advice. I don't sign any paychecks for these employees. I don't own any of their companies. So they could look at me and say, you know what, you're just a bag of hot air, Larry. Just keep walking and talking and we're going to ignore you. When it comes to how much clout I have in organizations, it's pretty much zero. But, how we turn that table is helping people and helping organizations get results. Some of the things we talked about before, emotional results, tangible results. And, my focus areas became, I looked over my career and said, what do I do best? And what do I love to do the most? I've worked in real estate for 12 years. I was a broker, so I understand a lot of real estate information and transactional information. I've been in marketing and advertising almost all my life in things like radio, outdoor, newsprint, internet, so I can bring that to the consulting party. Because I love people so much and I want people to thrive and be happy at work, that was kind of a natural tie-in to helping others with organizational design and those moving parts. The day I was born, they slapped me on the bottom, turned me over. I looked at the doctor and said, don't ask me to sell anything. But at the end of the day, I've been selling my whole life. We all sell every day in different ways. So, those are the things that I get really excited about. And I thought if I can help other organizations through those rough spots, and sometimes they're not even rough spots. Sometimes it's taking the good places and helping them become great. That's kind of been the driver behind where I am now in my career.
So do the solutions that you offer, Larry, do they have a name or do you have a package or something?
No, not really. I don't really, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful to anyone, but I don't really do anything that's canned. I look at every opportunity as unique and different with some commonality with other companies or other organizations. I guess my kids branded me Leadership Larry. And when I'm out there speaking, they don't even call me Dad anymore in public. They call me Leadership Larry. So I guess if that's my brand or part of my brand, I'm starting to leverage that a little bit more. But no, I don't really have what I would call a package solution or a series of steps because every organization seems to start in a different place. One thing I'm very big on, though, however, that I try to take into all of my projects is I believe everything stems off of communication, personally and professionally. When things go really, really well or beyond goal and expectation, there's typically, when you look over your shoulder and analyze, there's been great, concise, consistent, clear communication. And when things don't go well or things go really bad, it's usually just the opposite. So I always want to make sure that at least when I start a project, we set up some communication channels. We give people some communication tools, simple things like giving and receiving constructive feedback in the workplace, which some people struggle with. I facilitate just a lot of conversations in places where folks just don't know how to sit down and talk to each other without upsetting each other. That's such a prime foundation of success in business and success in life. So, that's how I approach some of those situations.
Excellent. And I'm sure you've been called worse things than Leadership Larry, so...
No, absolutely. I can't say those on the air.
Be grateful, okay? Love it. I love it how kids always keep things real. Anyway, Larry, unfortunately, we're coming towards the end of the show. You've shared a lot of great information. You've addressed some of the obstacles and the misconceptions and some of the pitfalls to be aware of. So if someone's out there and they're wanting to contact you, Larry, they're thinking, I need his help. Let's bring him in so that we can enhance our reputation and increase our market share, profitability, and our company value. How would they go about doing that, Larry? How do people get in contact with you?
Well, the great news is, and I'm fortunate, a lot of my business comes through word of mouth and referral, but I do have a website. The website is www.speakingofstrategy.org. And there's actually a contact section on the site if anybody wanted to fill that out and zap that over to me, and I can give them a call back. And quite honestly, no one filters my calls. I don't have a staff that keeps me away from people. So if anyone just wanted to call directly, they can reach me at area code 716-901-4352, and I promise I'll get back to them as quickly as I can. And Stuart, the way I operate is if something's not in my wheelhouse, if it's not my bailiwick and I can't help them, I tell them right up front, that's not what I do, or I'm not the best person for that, but let me find someone who is. So I never want to mislead people and get halfway into a project and say, yeah, I'm not really the right guy for this. I'm really upfront with people as far as, what I can do and what I would expect them to be able to do to work with me, and, how we can move forward together.
So, Larry, thank you so much for your time. We have got to go. It's been a lot of fun having you on the show. I love the name Leadership Larry, but I'm going to end the show by just addressing you by your correct business title. That was Larry Mietus. He's the founder of Speaking of Strategy. Please look him up online. You will be in good hands. Larry, any final thoughts before we leave?
Stuart, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity, and I hope I shed some light on a couple of topics for some of your listeners today. And, I always say to people, if I could boil everything we talked about in the last few minutes down to 4 words, I'd say have fun, make money. If you're not having fun, you won't make money. And if you're making too much money, you're probably not having enough fun. So keep those in balance, keep things in perspective, and I just hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.